for you. Welcome, and welcome live on Facebook. If you are on Facebook Live, greetings to our studio in Australia. It is now 8 a.m. Sunday morning, and I imagine they are all awake and ready with questions. We will be taking questions from the live audience here at the Howard Fine Acting Studio and also from Facebook. Please let all your friends know about this. Share the page, give us likes, loves. You will not want to miss the expert information from our next guest. Anybody interested in acting is going to benefit from this. Our guest today is teacher, coach, casting director, legendary casting director, Marcie Liroff. Marcie, I was on a panel a number of years ago with the late, great Milton Katselas. And Milton said something I thought was very wise. He said, there are no likely success stories. Every success story is an unlikely story. And the rest of the panelists, we all looked at each other and we thought, that's true of us. I want to hear your story, how you came to be, but especially anything that happened that had you in the right place at the right time, or any unlikely coincidence that helped propel you forward. Would love to hear it.
Well, I did not grow up wanting to be a casting director. I didn't even know what that was. I really fell into this in a certain way. When I got out of college, I knew I wanted to do something in the entertainment business. It could have been music, it could have been film, television. I really didn't know. And so I started bopping around to different jobs, which I think is a very good way to find yourself and figure out what you do want to do. And one of my last jobs before I started casting was working at a talent agency, ICM. And I was an assistant to a television agent, and I realized inside of a week I did not want to be an agent. But I stayed there for about a year and a half and kind of used it for school, because the amount of information that comes into a talent agency is huge. And that's where I learned what casting directors did, because I worked for a television agent who covered TV shows. And when I say covered, it means we would submit our clients to the casting director. And so I was having daily conversations with casting directors, and I thought, this is cool, I like this. And after about a year and a half, I started working in casting, and I worked for a company called Fenton and Feinberg Casting. It was Mike Fenton and Jane Feinberg. And it was in a different time than it is now, in that there were probably 10 major casting directors across the country, casting offices. Now there are probably 300 casting directors. And so I was there at a very good time. When you talk about timing, they were very popular, and I was their assistant, my Fenton's assistant, and then I started hiring USC and UCLA interns to answer the phones and get me off the front desk into the room, and that's where things changed. And the timing was great because they were casting some major movies that I got to work with them on, like Blade Runner and the Indiana Jones series and E.T. and Poltergeist, and I cut my teeth there.
Small films.
Some little films. There were a lot of other little ones like Porky's. I kind of ran the gamut, but it's there that I learned what this was, and they were very, very good teachers, and we were a very busy office, and they taught me the love for casting and how to do it, and the love and respect for actors, which is a very important element of what I do.
You are known for being tough but fair, and that every actor...
Who says these things? Where do you get that?
When they come back, I hear about what goes on, but that you truly give every actor their opportunity in the room to do their best.
Well, the tough part comes from, I have high expectations, and I want you to be good, and not waste your time and my time and everyone else's time by coming in and not being prepared.
Well, let's get into that a little bit. What do you expect in terms of preparation?
At the minimum, I expect you to be off book. And when I am...
Could I hear that again?
No, this is very interesting.
Because there's a debate.
I know, and this is what I want to talk about. So I've been teaching these what I call audition boot camp classes for the last 10 years.
And we have an announcement.
Yes, we'll get back to that. We'll circle back to that. I became frustrated with actors that I knew were very well trained, but were kind of flummoxed by the audition process. So I started teaching these classes years ago, and I try to replicate the audition process and tell them to come in for the first class and do your scene as if it's your first pre-read with the casting director. And many people are shockingly not off book. And they say, oh, I was told not to be, so that you could work with me and mold me, and if I'm off book, then it looks like a finished performance. So this is not, let me just tell you all and out there, this is not true. We want you to come in as off book as possible for many reasons, so that if you are lucky enough to get the director who's articulate, who's going to be giving you direction, if you're not off book, you're not going to be able to handle all of their notes because you don't know the material well enough and you're still struggling with the material. So at the minimum, you must be completely off book, know the material backwards and forwards, and make some very distinct choices. This is key, because I don't need to see someone come in and just recite the material. Like I said, you need to be off book, but I don't need to hear someone just read the lines. I need to know what your take on it is. So when we talk about making choices, even if your choice is wrong, meaning it's not what we're looking for, if you've made a distinct choice, I can tell you're a smart actor and I want to work with you and help guide you towards what it is that we are looking for. If you're not making any choices and you're just regurgitating the material, anybody could do that.
What is your preparation when you are about to cast a movie?
Good question. It's different for every project, depending on who I'm working with and what the timeline is. But I generally have many creative meetings with the director and the producers, and if it's a television show, the studio and the network is involved, about what we need, what are their expectations. In many films, we need some name leads so that they can make their foreign sales. So we figure out what our needs are and then have creative discussions about what we're looking for.
Have producers ever changed mid-casting in terms of what they're looking for?
Yeah, that's my job, to make them do that, quite honestly. Because it's interesting to see the description of the character on the page, and then I think as a good casting director, it's our job to think outside the box. And yes, that might be an interesting way it's written, but wouldn't this guy be more interesting? Case in point is, years ago I cast the movie Footloose, and the lead character the father was written as this very charismatic, Paul Newman-esque preacher. And we were reading actors that made sense for that, but I had just seen John Lithgow playing a transsexual in The World According to Garp, and a serial killer in Brian De Palma's Blowout, and I thought, this is such an interesting actor. He's not as written, but he's so interesting. So I brought him up to the director, Herbert Ross, and he looked at me like I was crazy, and I had to champion the cause to bring him in. And that's what we do. That's really a basic part of what we do. And he came in and read the scene with me, and this is the days before videotape, and when there was no one else in the room but the director and myself and the actor. And he read one scene, and he gave him the role in the room.
When you look at an actor's tape, what do you look for? How long should it be? What should they start with?
When you say their tape, are you talking about their audition tape or their demo reel?
Their demo reel, and then also an audition tape.
Well, things have changed due to technology and due to our lack of attention spans. The internet has literally rewired our brains to have no attention span anymore. So when someone's looking at your demo reel, you have to, I say, front load it with your best scene. And it used to be where you would do a montage of all with music and little clips. We don't want to see that. We want to get right to the scene. So it used to be that your demo reel could be 5 to 10 minutes long. Again, that doesn't work anymore. So you could either edit a demo reel that has different clips of your work. And if you do that, I suggest you separate your comedy reel with your drama reel, so make 2 separate reels. Because when I'm casting a dramatic show, I just want to show them your dramatic reels. You can also upload clips of your scenes as opposed to editing an entire reel. And I find a lot of people are doing that now. That's very helpful. So you could have 5 clips of all your different shows. But when you're doing this, think about what you're showing. Don't put in a scene that doesn't really feature you. If you're in a scene with 5 different people, I'm trying to figure out who you are within that scene. Don't put up a scene, let's say you have a scene with Tom Cruise and you're going, here's your water, sir, and you walk off. It kind of makes you look like an extra. We don't need to, yes, yay that you're in a scene with Tom Cruise, but put a scene in there that's really good and meaty, that's yours, that features you rather than the other people. And be very, you have to be a little cut and dried with this. Don't put up anything that's not good. I know you want to have a demo reel, and I know you want to have your stuff out there, but make sure it's actually good and worthy of being out there.
We're going to be taking questions from the live audience, also from Facebook. Please send in your questions, share this page, like us, love us. You are not going to want to miss the information that is coming our way from Marcie Liroff. This is a question from somebody here in the room, Chris Pardall, here you are. I would imagine that you are inundated and desensitized to receiving unsolicited emails from actors sending you headshots, videos, resumes, etc. Is there ever a time when an actor is ready, when you welcome this type of email and are compelled to read and watch the actor's material? Thank you for coming and producing and casting Untamed Heart, one of my favorite movies.
Me too. That movie means a lot to me. Love that movie. I am inundated with unsolicited material, and I don't have the time to look at it, unfortunately. That's why you have an agent to represent you or a manager to represent you and send your stuff when it's appropriate, when I'm casting something. That said, I do, and most of my colleagues do, bop around YouTube and look at what's out there, and we're constantly watching television and films and plays and seeing your work, and if something goes viral, it'll end up in front of my face. For instance, just this random thing, it was on, I want to say maybe Jimmy Kimmel the other night. They did a sketch with this little girl explaining to President Trump what a tariff actually is. She was about 9 years old, and I'm like, who is that girl? I have to find this girl. If she's not an actress, she needs to be. She's fantastic. So I've been trying to find her.
A few nuts and bolts questions. During the interview with you, just the chit-chat portion, if you have time for one of those, what are the turn-ons and turn-offs that an actor does in the room with you? If you just chat.
Oh, when someone comes in to meet me?
Yeah.
In an audition? Okay. So when you watch these, here's what I compare it to. When you watch these talk shows, and Kimmel is talking to a guest, and it looks like they're all friends and they're just shooting the shit. Quite honestly, beforehand, their producer has interviewed the actor or their publicist, and they've gone through what the interview beats will be. They know exactly what they're going to talk about ahead of time, and they're such good actors that they make it look very like a natural, freewheeling conversation. So when you come in to meet a casting director, have something to say. When we ask you, so what's going on? And you go, nothing. What have you been up to lately? What did you think of the script? Oh, it was cute. We want to see, you just went, face plant. We want to know, we want to find out who you are by having this chat with you. We want to see how articulate you are, what your vibe is. It's like having a conversation at a dinner party. And it goes both ways. Here's part of the pet peeve part. It's not just me interviewing you, it's you talking to me. You've done your homework on who I am, and you can say, oh, that movie you did, Untamed Heart, that was so amazing. How did you find that kid? Do some research and have something to say. So it could be a work-related story that I just started this great new acting class. Have you heard of Howard Fine? He's fantastic. Or
what a great icebreaker.
Or a personal story that I just got a puppy. Just something that, or I just started taking a dancing class. I've never had really, something so that I know who you are. Now, that said, make sure your personal story is not too cuckoo personal. I was...
Could you elaborate?
Well, I'm going to tell you a story. So I teach this to my classes about coming in and just preparing maybe what you're going to talk about ahead of time. Not so that it sounds canned, but so that you have some topics to talk about. So I was teaching this with my class, and I said, so, Vivian, how are you doing today? What's going on? She goes, oh, ended up in the hospital the entire night. I got in this huge fight with my husband, and I just kept egging him on, and finally he hit out and he hit the wall and he broke his hand. And I fell on the floor and I was just crying at his feet, and the whole class kind of moved their seats back. It was so wildly inappropriate, and not the kind of story that you want to share. So I explained to her nicely that maybe this isn't the kind of story you want to share. So the next class, I say, so Vivian, how are you doing? What's going on with you? And she goes, oh, I got this boil lanced on my leg. And she picks up her skirt and she has this big bandage on her
Yeah, that made a good point.
Okay.
Headshots, are they still important? And what makes a good headshot?
Oh, yes. So when you get these instructions from your agent to bring your picture and resume, we effing mean it. Bring it. Don't think, oh, they already have a copy or my agent said it ahead of time. Unless you're Will Smith or Angelina Jolie, bring your picture and resume, because there are still these auditions that go on where the director wants to be holding your picture and resume in her hand as she's auditioning you. Or I want to have that as I'm meeting with you, because there are things on your resume that aren't on your IMDb page, such as your training, the theater you've done. We look at those things and we love those things. Many people ask, what is my theater training important? It's what our go-to is, quite honestly. We immediately go to that and we look at your training. So definitely bring them. It's your calling card. Have a bunch of them in your car. Don't come in without them. And staple them, for God's sakes. Because you think this is so basic, but if this always happens, they'll come in unstapled, and then through the course of the day they get separated, and all I have is a picture that has no name on it and no contact information, and it's separated from your resume, and I have no idea who this person is any longer. So yes, headshots are important, and I wish I could show you, I show my classes on a monitor what your headshots look like on our end on Breakdown, on Actors Access, so that you can see what a good headshot is, what works and what doesn't work. And you have to remember, a headshot is this. It's not this. Don't go, so what? It's this, and quite honestly, it should capture you on your best day. It should look like you. It should not be some glamorous version of you. It should look like you, and quite frankly, the thing that gets me, it's the eyes. And make sure that your background isn't too busy and crazy, that you're not standing in front of a graffiti wall. It should be you.
Have you caught people not telling the truth on their resumes?
Yes. Don't lie. Don't ever lie. It will come back to bite you. Lying about your credits. I've had actors come in with credits of films that I've cast that I know they were not in. Oh. Or don't lie about your special skills. Don't exaggerate. Don't say that you can fly a plane if you can't fly a plane. Don't say that you're a horseback rider and then get hired on a movie and then start training. So your special skills are important. Be very, very, very specific about what you can do. If you can shoot a gun, tell us what kind of guns you can shoot and how proficient you are. If you don't just say dance, tell us exactly what you do. If you sing, tell us, are you a tenor? Are you a baritone? Don't put stupid stuff on there like you can cross your eyes or...
Okay. We're taking questions from the live audience, also from Facebook. Please share the page. Please give us likes and loves. Spread the word. All right, let's see. This is from Facebook. This is from Ricarte Rivera. How do you recommend actors use Twitter, Facebook, and other social media outlets to promote themselves?
How much time do we have? Let's see.
That's important.
This is a whole class. Let's talk about Facebook for a moment. It's good to have a personal page on Facebook. You know, we're all kind of angry about Facebook right now, so let me talk about Facebook in the old days before things became so compromised. Right now, I don't know how much time I want to spend on there. But if you have a personal page, make sure it's very locked down in terms of security and who can see your stuff. Because if you have a bunch of photos of you, you know, going out and partying, getting high, and that's made to the public, and I'm thinking of hiring you for a movie, you know, this stuff will haunt you, quite honestly. If you have a business page, your acting page, that would be a great thing to do. But I am, frankly, very frustrated with Facebook about these business pages, which I've spent years curating and gaining members, and then I'll post something. So I have, let's say I have 15,000 people that are following my page. When I post something, only 10% of them actually see it because of Facebook's algorithm. And I'm not buying an ad, and I'm just posting something. So I have no control over my group that I've put together over all these years. I don't have their email addresses. I have no way of contacting them. And only 1/10 of them actually see what I put out. So I have misgivings about Facebook right now, but I have been in love with Twitter since I started. And it's a great way to learn a lot about many different subjects. I'm a news junkie, and so I really like that I get news in real time. And for actors, if you're thinking about getting into Twitter or any of the social media platforms, I suggest that you grab your handle, so to speak, on all platforms, meaning get your name for an account for Instagram, and I suggest you always use your name if it's possible, for Instagram, Twitter, a Facebook page, and your domain name for a website. Because if you're thinking of putting together a website, you want to make sure it's your name. So grab all those things and just have that as placeholders if you're not ready to actually jump in. And then if you do jump in on Twitter, I find it best when you're first starting is to follow people that you're interested in, not all the movie stars, but news accounts. And if you're into dog rescue, you can follow people like that. I have a list on my page that has all the casting directors that tweet. So if you go to my Twitter page, you'll see a thing that says lists, and then you can subscribe to that list that says casting directors that tweet. So you don't have to follow 400 casting directors, you can just follow this list, and that feed will be just the casting directors that tweet. The thing that I learned when I first started social media is to not blab about yourself all day, because that bores people, and it's just rude in the social media world. So the rule is 20-80, 20%, 80%, 20% about yourself, 80% about everything else. Meaning, the reason I got onto Twitter was to help actors. I use it for many other things now, but so I will tweet 80% of interesting articles that I think will be interesting for actors, politics, food, dog rescue, and then 20% of stuff that I've written that's just about me. But so right now, if you're just starting, you can start by watching and listening rather than blabbing.
Great. This is from our studio in Australia.
Hi.
Marianne Niceforo. She was going to fly in.
Marianne, don't fly in. You're right there in your jammies. Come on.
Okay. What are your honest thoughts about Australians and other international actors being in the pool of the American industry? Do you have any experiences or stories about Aussies you have auditioned or worked with?
Oh, I have. I mean, a lot of American actors complain that all the foreigners are stealing our roles, and I don't believe that. We like to hire the best and most interesting people. So I have no problem with hiring people from outside the country. I just went to a film festival in Kilkenny, Ireland, where I met 50 international actors, and I hope to use them in my films here. We have broadened our database in terms of who makes sense in our world in terms of casting, and I want to hire the best actor. in terms of Australians, love Australians. I actually cast a woman named Lucy Fry, who's Australian, in a movie I cast called Vampire Academy. So, bring it on.
If it is an international actor and they can do an American accent, should they show up doing that accent the whole time, or should they interview in their own accent and then switch?
Good question, and everyone has their own take on this. I suggest you come into the room, if you're playing an American, come into the room and do an American accent the entire way until we're done, and then if we continue chatting, then you can go back to your natural accent or not.
This is from somebody in the room, Jai Pushkolnik. Where are you there? Okay. Many times I notice actresses my age as the leads of series and big movies. When I look them up on IMDb, I find that they have very few credits, and sometimes none at all. What makes these young actors stand out in the room? What about them makes you confident they'll be able to carry a series or movie?
Can you give me an example of people that have no experience that are starring in?
Well, I noticed, I think her name is Camila Mendez from Riverdale, and she studied at an acting program in New York, but when she booked it, she had no credits on her IMDb, so I'm just wondering what makes her stand out in the room.
Well, it generally comes down to someone being authentic and honest and listening, and having watched thousands and thousands and thousands of auditions, myself and the people that I work with have developed a certain muscle, and I can't really tell you what that is, but to know when someone's right and when someone has that extra it factor, that quality. So what stands out in the room is you being really great and also fitting in to the world that we're trying to create, meaning you fit right with the ensemble cast and you fit right in the time period and the look of the show. There's so many elements, but the main thing is that she was probably really good.
Thanks.
This is from Brooke Becker over there. What is the most common mistake you see actors make, and what is your advice on avoiding it?
Let me turn around to you. Generally not being prepared. It's like we discussed at the beginning of the class, that they come in and kind of half-ass it. And when you come in that way and then the next guy comes in and is off book and listening and interacting, and it just kind of blows you right out of the water. So it's usually just lack of preparation.
We got a question last month about when there's an action film auditioning.
Oh, good question.
How much should you
Good question.
do or
Very
not?
good question. Sometimes we pick the most ridiculous scenes that are that are very, very problematic in an audition. So generally, the casting director will pick out the scenes, and then we run it by the director, producer, and say, what do you think of these scenes? And then we edit them down, and those are the scenes that we release. And we generally try to pick scenes that show different sides of that character, so that if you're doing 3 scenes, we'll see different sides of you for what we need to make some decisions. And sometimes there'll be too much action for standing in front of a camera. So what you can do, if there's action and you're not sure how to play it, what you should say is, how have you guys been blocking the scene? Because we have been auditioning for the last several weeks, and we know how the scene should go. And so rather than saying, what should I do in this scene? What do you want me to do? Just say, how have you guys been blocking this? And then we will tell you what you need to do. Do you actually need to stand there with a gun? Do you need to, if you're, let's say you're getting slapped. Now obviously the reader's not going to come up and slap you, but you need to react to that. So there's a lot of action that's written in there that you will probably not do and just cheat it for the audition, but you'll kind of need to know specifically what that is. So ask us, how have you guys been blocking this? And then we'll tell you exactly how the scene should run.
Have you ever had actors put their hands on you in one of those auditions? Tell us the story. Which is a bad idea, I think.
Yeah. Not a good idea. So I'm generally always off camera. And so a very inexperienced actor came and pulled me out of my chair, threw me on the ground and straddled
What?
me. Yeah. It was very scary, and I'm screaming. And
Oh my God!
Yeah.
You were assaulted.
Yes, and that was Sean Penn. No, I'm kidding.
Good Lord.
I had another scene, I will not mention his name, but in the olden days, before we had videotape, we did screen tests when we were doing, for the lead in the movie. We would run film and we would have wardrobe and sets and spend an inordinate amount of money. And so we would do chemistry tests to see who fit with each other. Sometimes I would read off camera. And so there was this big fight scene in a movie that we were doing. I was reading off camera. And at the end, the actor got up out of his chair, picked up his chair, and threw it at me. And I ducked. It missed me, but you've got to be so responsible with your acting partner. I've seen when we've done chemistry tests, actors get very physical with the other actor without asking or telling, and you've been in scenes before where things have gone a little awry. It's dangerous, and sometimes when you're in the moment, you don't know what you're doing, and that's why we have stunt people that are supposed to advise you. But you got to be respectful. You got to be careful.
Good Lord. It's a more dangerous
You
job
asked.
than interviewing.
asked.
But that's important. Okay. This is from somebody in the room. We are taking questions from the live audience from Facebook. Please like our page, share it. Anybody in the entertainment industry will want to hear from our guest. This is from Odell. There he is. What do you think the industry is? Where do you think the industry is going with all this diverse casting? Specifically, all these Cubans getting jobs.
It's a great thing. Here's the thing: is the industry is finally catching up with what us casting directors have been suggesting for years. We have been the biggest proponents of this for decades, and the industry is finally catching up with what we have been suggesting. So where is it going? It's finally starting to show us what the world looks like for real, and that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is from Stephen Salisbury. Where are you? Okay. Is no tape better than bad tape?
Yes, that's what I always say. I would rather see nothing than a crappy tape. The bad tape will put a very bad feeling in our, bad taste in our mouth, and you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube after that. So we understand if you're just starting out and you don't have a reel. We can see that on your resume, that you don't have reel yet, so you don't have footage. So I'd rather see nothing than see something bad.
This is from Michael Underwood. There he is. Did you have any idea that Christmas Story would become the cult classic that it did? And what's the biggest difference about casting children versus adults?
I love casting children. The biggest difference is that they have no ego formed yet, so they don't get nervous, and they will do anything for you. And I urge you as adult actors to remember what you were like as a child, and that play that you had, and that imagination that you had, that when you start becoming a teenager and you become a young adult, your ego starts forming, and you literally start building this wall of protection around you so that you don't look like an idiot. You know, as we get older, we don't want to look stupid, and so we start censoring ourselves. Kids are so free, they don't give a shit. They don't have that yet. And also, they're not worried about paying their rent or feeding their children. So, but you have to go back to that mindset of what you were as a child when you loved playing dress up. And that will really free you up as an actor, as an adult actor. So what I love about casting kids is that they just you don't have to worry. You know, when I'm casting adults, it's like I worry for them sometimes. And I'm so empathetic, and I'm trying so hard to make the room comfortable and make them comfortable. With kids, they just come in and they do it, and they're like, bye, they get out. They don't care. So it's really fun with kids. It's really, really
I think you've got a great E.T. story.
Yes.
That has to do with casting children that everybody might want to hear.
Sure. So if you've, and I'll get back to your, what was the other part of that question? Let me just finish the, did I know that Christmas Story was going to, no, I just, you know, it was the same director as Porky's, Bob Clark, who, rest in peace. And so, you know, he came from a, you know, look at Porky's compared to, just raunchy, compared to Christmas Story. I had no idea what it would become. It seemed very goofy to me at the time. And also very, you know, stylistically it was very over the top, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But it's so much fun. It's such a fun movie. But going back to E.T., so talking about casting kids. I was casting E.T. with Mike Fenton, and we had found the kid that we liked for the role of Elliot, the lead, and we had found all the other kids that would play his brother and his friends. And we wanted to see what they would be like together as a chemistry, just see what their chemistry was. So we invited them to the writer's house and had them sit around a table and play Dungeons and Dragons and just see what they were like together. We were kind of in the outskirts of the room. And in 5 minutes it became clear that nobody liked this little kid. All the little boys were just, he was bossy, and you know how when you play a game, sometimes your true colors come out, and we realized this, you know, through no fault of his own, we realized this was not our boy. So I realized I had to start over, and this was before the days of the internet and being able to put out an open call and get all these submissions. But luckily enough, this director, Jack Fisk, called Steven Spielberg, and he had just finished a film called Raggedy Man, starring his wife, Sissy Spacek. And this little boy played her son. And he lived on a little farm outside of Texas. And we flew him in, and he had to get up at 3 in the morning, and he was exhausted, and he read a scene, and he wasn't very, it wasn't that he wasn't very good, we were just underwhelmed, so to speak. But he had the look, and he was so sweet, and we knew he was great from what the Steven's friend had told us. So we decided to do an improv with him, and Spielberg told him, and you can look this up on YouTube because it's an astonishing audition. A man from NASA has come to your house because he heard that you have an alien, and he wants to take him, and you have to do everything you can do to stop that. That's all they told him. And he had us in tears in about 3 minutes. So we were all standing behind the camera just weeping. And he got the job in the room. He said, "You got the job, kid." The air conditioning on?
Yes, we do have it on.
Oh.
Can we turn it up? It's
Okay.
the number of people in the room.
Yeah.
Which is a credit to you, Marcie.
What?
The amount of people that are here. That's
Oh.
why it's so hot.
Oh, I see. I thought it was just me.
And your personality. This is from Facebook. This is from Stephen Tingus. Do you think there will be an uptick in casting disabled actors versus able-bodied actors in certain roles? Can you talk about inclusion in Hollywood?
Yes, good question, Stephen. Recently, I'm a member of the Casting Society of America, and in January we did an open call, a national open call in, I might get this wrong, but I think it was about 16 cities across the country in January, an open call for disabled actors. And it was extraordinary. And we filmed it all. We have a database of these actors, and it is our job to be inclusive in all forms. And I am seeing an uptick in this all the time, and lately, and we are using our resources to help make that happen. I'm teaching a class right now, and I have 2 deaf students, and they are bringing their interpreters, and just we have to level the playing field for everyone so that everyone has a chance.
We're taking questions from the live audience from Facebook. Please share our page. Please give us likes and loves and tell everybody in the industry you know to tune in.
That's like the Howard Fine commercial.
It is. I'm on automatic. It happens.
It's really funny.
It's on loop. This is from Eddie Johnson from Facebook. Do you typically go to a specific group of agents to find your guest stars?
No, I go through, my whole office goes through all the submissions that come from the agents and managers, and quite honestly, I don't even look at who's representing them. I'm just looking at the submission and their demo reel, and if we know them already, and their work, and I don't look by agency. It works differently in all the casting offices, but all the people that I know are just looking for the best talent and not necessarily going just by the agency.
In terms of the audition process, how do you advise actors handle the waiting room before they go in?
Ah, good question. The waiting room is a killer. The waiting room can be so lethal for many actors. It's bad for me. You know, when I go up for a project, sometimes it's just offered to me, but many times I have to do the same thing that you guys do, and I have to go
They don't fully
and meet.
realize
I know.
that.
I have to go and do that same lap dance that you guys have to do.
But really understand, it's a hustle at every stage in this business
Right.
for everyone.
And so the waiting room, I know for me, can be really deadly, where I come there and I'm ready, and I'm all ready to cut my notes, and I'm ready to go, and I sit down in the chair, and they keep me waiting. And they keep me waiting. And I'm slumping in the chair, and my energy is fading. So I know that for me, I can't sit. So I will stand in the waiting room, and I just gotta keep up on my feet. So you have to know what works for you and what flags your energy or what makes you nervous. You go into these waiting rooms, and it's either so quiet and deadly that you can just cut the tension with a knife, or there's some guy in the corner bragging about all the auditions that he's going to this month, and you're thinking, I haven't been on audition in months, and so do what you need to do to protect yourself, and that may be putting in earbuds and listening to whatever music calms you, or even putting in earbuds so that no one will talk to you, even if you don't have music on. There's this TED Talk, you know TED Talks, with a social psychologist named Amy Cuddy, and her name's Cuddy, Cuddy, and I strongly suggest you watch it. And she talks about how body language can rewire your brain chemically, and she talks about the power move of standing like this or standing like this, and it sounds cuckoo, it sounds crazy, but watch her talk, and if you start feeling nervous in the waiting room, go into the bathroom, stand in one of the stalls, and stand like this, you know, like Wonder Woman, for 3 minutes, and it will change the chemistry in your brain and make you feel more relaxed and more powerful. Just try it.
Have you seen an actor fall apart in an audition and then recover?
Generally, it's kind of like a one-way slope. Unfortunately, but you do have the power to, if you fall off the horse, so to speak, to get back up and win it. And it really has to do with you and your confidence. It's all up to you, quite honestly. If you let's say you go up on your lines and you get lost, rather than going, oh, I'm so sorry, can I please start again? I always screw that line up. That makes us really nervous. But if you go, I'm going to start again, and just start again. Don't ask for permission, just do it. And it's the way I talk about this in my class, it's kind of like a tightrope walker. So we're at the circus, and there's a tightrope walker going across the tightrope, and she loses her footing, and she almost falls, and the whole audience goes, oh my God, and then she gracefully recovers and gets back on the tightrope and continues across the tightrope, and the audience goes to their feet and they're rooting for her. And so if the same thing in an audition, if you lose your place and you stay composed and you don't have a meltdown, I mean, it's not like you drove over my puppy. It's not a big deal that you forgot your lines. Like, so what? But it's how you handle it that gives us faith in you, and we will root for you if you recover gracefully.
So do you find somebody who starts to make excuses that makes you more nervous for them?
Yes, and also I just got this last night. I'm sorry, I'm not off book. Well, everyone got it last night. And the last guy came in and he was ready, and the 2 guys ago were ready, so why aren't you? And so those excuses are for something else. There's something else at play here.
We're taking questions from the live audience from Facebook. Please share the page, give us likes, give us loves. Australia, where are you? We only got 1 question so far. Are you not awake?
You know what I would love for you to do is, you know how at the at a fight and they have the women come out with the little cards.
Round 1, round 2.
You should have someone come on.
They did that last month. Becky and Ian, they would hold up signs for me. I'm trying to do it without that. Well, there it is. We have it. I'm trying to be off book myself.
You are.
Okay, this is from Tanya Allman. Where are you, Tanya? Okay, there. Okay, I'm ethnically ambiguous. If a project does not specify that they need a diverse talent to exhibit those characteristics, should I go in the audition neutral or punch up these ethnic qualities I have?
So I can be a little bit more specific.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think so.
I've been told to tan so I look more Latin. I can change, I can emphasize my Latina look with my clothing or with jewelry. I tend to just go in neutral with a very neutral American accent because I can do it. But I can also add other, I can change my accent a little bit. If they're calling for diverse talent, sometimes it's not written in the dialogue or in the scene that they exhibit those qualities. So are they looking for talent just to fill in that, check in that box? We're casting someone diverse, or are they specifically kind of wanting to see that flavor that we have?
Yes, yes, and yes. It's different on every project. And yes, a lot of times people are wanting to check a diverse box. And a lot of times it's the right actor walks in and brings the flavor of what we're looking for. Should you punch certain characteristics up? This is a very slippery slope, and I hesitate to even answer that in a way, because I think it really just depends on what the role calls for and how you see it. So if you want to come in and you're more Latina than the audition before, it's just your choice of how you see it.
Okay, thank you.
As long as it's authentic and honest, and this world is a melting pot, and we are now hopefully casting that way to show everyone what the world really looks like.
There was
As long as it's not a caricature.
There was a question that goes with that about, is there a range of body type now being cast as well? More
Yes.
diversity.
Yes, and you'll see on television in the last year how that has changed, and in film as well.
This is from Ashley from Facebook. Do you recommend serious actors participate as background or extras to gain on-set experience? Can doing background work hurt your career?
Well, I wish you were here for a follow-up, but when you say serious actors, you're all serious actors. I hope that's it. I think if you're just starting out, it's a great way to gain on-set experience by sitting on set and absorbing and being a background actor. Will it hurt your acting career? No, because no one will know about it. On your resume, you do not put your background acting jobs on your resume. I see this a lot, and you don't put that on there. So it's a great way to earn experience and also to gain hours so that you can get into SAG-AFTRA. But soon you will not be doing that. I mean, it's a good way to start out.
This is from Facebook, from Rachel McVeigh. What is your preferred method of contact for inviting you to a play in which we're currently performing? Industry comps, of course.
You know, I pay for theater. I don't take comps. I think theater needs to be, I don't think you should be paying for it. I think we should be paying for it, for starters. And just send a postcard or an email. It's going to be different for every casting director, so that's what I'd like you to do.
This is from Meg Ashforth. Where are you, Meg? Okay, back there. Okay. Would you recommend participating in workshops with casting directors? How important are these for actors?
I don't do workshops, so I can't really answer that question. So I suggest you take classes.
Okay. Have you noticed, this is something I posted on the board that was actually from an Australian newspaper. It says, mumble acting is destroying television and film. I see it as an epidemic. Do you notice it in casting, where there are actors right in front of you that you can't understand them, or they're mumbling, or there's no voice?
Well, in the middle of a scene, I'll say, "Excuse me," and I can tell whether they're listening or not. Because if I can't understand them, then no one can understand them on the tape. So I'll make them repeat it, and then if I want to see them do it again, I'll tell them, "You need to enunciate." I do that with my coaching clients all the time.
And I see it on the increase. Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest problems with speech patterns is up-talking. Up-talking is when you are making a statement and it sounds like a question. And it is a very dangerous speech pattern, because, especially for actors, because the intention of the line is completely changed when you up-talk, so your voice goes up at the end of a sentence, so that I don't really know if you mean what you're saying. Are you asking me, or are you telling me? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, and do you have pet peeves about grammar, language?
I don't know. Is that an inside joke, or do you guys get that out
They
there?
get it. Facebook might not get it,
Yes.
but the people in the room
So
do.
for those Facebook land that don't know, Howard has, as I do actually, a big problem with the word "like." It's like, I don't know, it's just like so, like, and also, it drives me crazy, So what these are filler words, and they usually happen when you're doing dialogue, when you're doing a scene, when you don't know the lines, and you start changing it with, and I say too often, and like, and so these are words that, given the right character, there are some characters you write.
It's in some scripts now,
in
I
some
know.
scripts as a teenager talking, that makes perfect sense, but for an adult speaking and changing the dialogue, which changes the intent of the scene by using these words, is very dangerous and wrong and unacceptable. And so, Howard, do you have some sort of money pot? What do you do?
It's $1 per L word, and then at the end we throw a pizza party with it. But I used to fund that pizza party. It would be my present to the class. But in the last 5 years, not. They have enough for appetizers, desserts,
Caviar.
pizza flown in from Italy. Not a badge of honor. Okay, this is from Ian Cardoni, who's here. What is the biggest factor when deciding to bring an actor in, especially with actors who may be highly trained, have been professional for years, but have few known credits? What could flip a no to a yes?
In terms of me bringing them in,
Yeah.
Yes, on submission.
I really need to see, if I don't know them, I need to see some film. So if you don't have that, that's going to be hard. But if you have an agent, your agent should either push to get you in, or more likely have you do a self-tape audition, and I will watch everything. I don't take unsolicited self-taped auditions, but because I would be overrun with too many auditions and submissions, but it's your agent's job to get you in that room. So this is true in my office and in most of the offices I know, that we'll watch whatever is sent to us. So that'll change our mind, and if you have a spark of something that's right, we'll bring you in.
What makes a good self-tape or a bad self-tape, Marcie?
Oh gosh.
I know they're all such loaded questions.
So technically speaking, you have to make sure that you're lit well. And here's the thing, is you can test all this before you send it in. So your framing is about here. We need to see you well. You need to test for sound. Your sound has to be good. And you have to try to get a really good reader. The reader really helps you. And make sure that your reader, so I'm looking at the camera right now, make sure the reader is standing right next to the camera, almost straddling the tripod, so that your eye line is correct. So the thing that we see in self-taped auditions that are wrong most of the time is your eye line is wrong, because you're reading to someone over here, where we want to see you looking like this. I actually wrote a very good article on this on my website. I have a blog, and it's called, I think it's called How to Self-Tape Yourself Like a Rock Star. So it has all the technical information. And if you are requested to do a self-tape audition, many times they'll have instructions. So make sure you follow those instructions to a T in terms of what they want you to do, how to film it, how to slate yourself. In terms of slating, make sure that your slate is a separate take than your scene. So don't say, "Hi, I'm Marcie Liroff, I live in Los Angeles," and then he hit me. Don't go right into your scene, because you look like an idiot. So make sure your slate is a separate take than your takes. And you have the opportunity to do it a few times until you get it right. You're in control of this. And pick the best scene and send that one in.
We've had a bunch of questions from Facebook to follow up about headshots. Do you look through an actor's different looks? How much should actors spend? Where does an actor's dollar have the greatest impact in terms of headshots?
Yes, you have to spend so much money on the tools of your career, and headshots are definitely very important. The photo that is submitted, your agent usually picks the default picture that is the one that's submitted, and then if you look interesting, I'll click that and look at all the rest of your looks. I don't think you need 10 pictures unless you're a commercial actor, and that's much more important. But for a theatrical headshot, you need just a few, 2 or 3, quite honestly. What was the rest of that question? Where's your money best spent?
Yeah.
It's making sure that you've got a headshot that really kicks ass and that looks like you, and that represents who you are.
This is Michael Underwood. When working with Spielberg, Nolan, and Ridley Scott on casting decisions, directors that tend to have so much creative control, how much leeway do they give you in casting decisions? Or do they give you a very specific outline of what they were looking for?
Well, each one was different, and I work with each one of them differently because they work differently with the casting director. So some of them are more collaborative than others, and some of them are very specific on what they're looking for. I know working with Spielberg and George Lucas on the Raiders movies, it was a very collaborative situation. And I remember going around the room after we had tested the women for Marion, and we all voted. It was very collaborative. Now, I'm not fooling myself to think that I had the decision. Obviously it's not, but it depends on the filmmaker and how we work together. Some more collaborative than others.
And are the best situations highly collaborative?
Yes, it's great. It's fun.
This is from Paris Elliott. Where are you? Over there? Hi, Paris. Is there one piece of advice you would give to an actor who is brand new?
Oh my gosh. Study. You're studying, your training never ends, even when you get older. It's just, you can't learn enough. And be open and be curious and listen. I remember when I was younger, in my 20s, I think a lot of 20-year-olds have this disease where they think they know everything. And I know I was like that. And looking back, I wish I had listened more.
This is from J.B. Joplin. She's there. What is the likelihood that you will cast an unknown in a lead role?
It depends on the project. Many projects we need to have a name to get the financing. So, for instance, in Vampire Academy, we were looking for 2 unknown-ish young women, and that's what we did. So it depends on what our needs are financially, quite honestly.
This is from Cameron Copperthwaite. There he is. Do you watch the whole self-tape? Do you think it's akin, thank you, the word akin is beautiful, to one's reel, you should front load a self-tape? Perhaps if you're doing multiple scenes, don't open with scene 1 necessarily?
Well, if they give you a few scenes to do for the audition, you should do them in the order that they're given to you. And only put up your best takes, obviously. What was the first part of that question?
Do you watch the whole self-tape?
No, I do if it's good, but I have a finely honed talent now to know whether this is going to work or not. And I can tell in a few seconds.
Thank you.
So here's a good addendum to that. When I'm doing auditions in the room with an actor and working on the scenes, sometimes I can see that, let's say it's a 3-page scene, and I can see that they warmed up by the 2nd page, and they got really into it by the 2nd page. When I send that tape off for my team to look at, if they're boring and not in it in the beginning of the scene, they're going to click away. So my advice to you is to make sure that you hit it in the beginning of the scene, meaning you've got to be engaged. And I wish we had a monitor, because the example that I would show you is this Henry Thomas audition for E.T., because the moment the scene starts, you as the viewer are engaged, because he was in it from the second it started. So you can't ease into it and then get really into it by the 2nd page, because they've already clicked away, because no one has an attention span anymore.
Thank you. Wardrobe. If somebody's playing, if they're a man, they're playing an attorney, what might they do? What would be too far in terms of wardrobe wearing to an audition?
Well, what you wear to your audition tells us how you're thinking as an actor and how you're not thinking. It's very indicative of whether your instincts are good. So you have to help us see you as the role. I was casting a movie years ago called Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, and it took place at a rehearsal dinner for a wedding and then at the wedding. And all the men wore jackets and ties, and all the women wore cocktail dresses. And the people that are looking at your audition are not often in the room, and so all they're seeing is this little thumbnail of you. And if you look like the part already, you're halfway there. So you want to help us see you as the role. So what is going too far? If you're coming in as a doctor, don't wear scrubs and a stethoscope around your neck. Don't, you laugh. It happens. It happens. But you don't make it costumey. Show us an indication of what this person would wear. If you're an attorney, what does an attorney wear? A suit, right? So you have to think about how this person would dress. And let's say it's a period piece, so obviously you don't want to have to go out and get some antique clothing, but just wear very classic lines and colors.
Have you experience actors coming in mispronouncing words that they could have looked up?
Yes, all the time. But let me just
Oh,
add
sorry.
one more thing about
Let's go back to clothes.
the
Yeah.
clothes. But yes, that's a great question. I'm a big proponent of wearing the right shoes to your audition, and even in your self-tapes. You know, we're not going to see your shoes because we're only seeing this. But how sounds very woo, but how your feet are connected to the earth will help you as an actor in terms of how you're standing and whether you're in your scene. Everyone needs different things as an actor to help them get into the role. Some people literally need to be wearing, the right underpants, whatever that is. But if you're a woman and it's a kick-ass role and we tell you to wear some combat army boots, because that'll help you be like this. Don't wear high-heel, thigh-high boots. This happened in some film that I cast. So I think your shoes are very important, and even in the self-tapes where we're only seeing this much of you. Do you feel this? Like, don't you think that would help you?
Even headshots.
Oh, even headshots, yeah. It's like how you stand and how you're connected to the earth.
And then the actors who don't do their homework and mispronounce words. Or don't
So
understand what
yeah,
they're
this is
reading.
another huge pet peeve of mine. You shouldn't be saying anything that you don't know what it means. You shouldn't be that you don't know what you're referring to or you don't know how it's pronounced. It's totally fine for you to ask a question. Let's say we're doing a sci-fi movie and they have these make-believe planets and you don't know how to pronounce it because it's a made-up word for the script. So it's fine for you to ask, how do you pronounce this word? But everything else, you should be looking up. There's no excuse for you to come in and mispronounce a word. We had this, I forgot what movie it was, we were using the word nihilistic in a scene.
Mhm.
No one could pronounce it. And these are adults.
And doesn't that tell you something right off the bat?
Yeah, it's lack of preparation. And they didn't know what it meant, and so didn't know what they were
So
saying.
they weren't just mispronouncing it. They just thought, no, I don't have to look that up.
Right.
Because what are directors looking for in terms of hiring someone? They're looking for them to be
Smart people.
Yeah.
We're looking for smart people.
This is from the studio in Australia. It's from one of our faculty, Marilyn McIntyre. Good morning, Marilyn. Yay. What is your best advice for my younger students here in Australia who are considering LA, besides getting a visa, that they can be ready to hit the shores running? Should their demo reel include some scenes with an American accent?
Well, the visa is very important, and a lot of actors are coming here thinking they can work, and if you don't have an O1 visa, you're screwed. I just did a pilot for a network, and not only did we need an O1 visa, but we needed an O1 visa that was created from that studio. So that takes an extra 6 or 8 weeks, and when I'm on a very short turnaround time for a pilot, that makes it difficult. So some of the things they should do is make sure that maybe they've scouted things out before they come and move over here, so that they have a network of people for support and a good place to live, and you need a job that's going to give you the freedom to go on auditions. You got to really put this down on paper in terms of the cost. You need a car, you need insurance. There's a lot of expenses. In terms of the demo reel, yes, it's good to know that you can do an American accent as well. I've found a lot of Australian actors have a terrific American accent.
We can't do them at all, but they do us really
Yeah.
well. Great, thank you, Marilyn.
Thanks,
Good
Marilyn.
morning. This is from Facebook, from Andy. Do you recommend actors change their name? Funny he didn't put his last name. Do you recommend actors change their names if they have hard to spell or pronounce?
Let's ask Zach Galifianakis. I don't know. It's up to you. I don't think it matters.
And he has a second question, which is, could you talk about the importance of actors' branding themselves?
I think you're not Nike, you're not Coca-Cola. I want you to concentrate on your work, and I don't like this word brand for actors. I understand that lots of people are talking about this, but I think it's about your training, and I don't believe you're a brand. The Kardashians are a brand. Is Willem Dafoe a brand? I mean, I don't get this conversation.
And there are also
The branding.
some that are teaching them to find their type, know their type. What do you think about that?
I cast against type, so I don't really care whether you know your type or not. It doesn't matter to me that you know your type.
Some of these agents and managers are saying,
I don't understand what that brings. I have a very good friend that teaches that class, but I still don't get it.
I'm in agreement with you, but wanted to hear what you had to say. Okay, this is from Facebook, from Alex. Tell us about props in an audition. What is acceptable, purse, water bottle, etc. I have seen well-known actors eat granola bars in auditions and book. Is this too much?
Generally speaking, we don't like props in auditions. The most acceptable prop is a telephone if the scene calls for a telephone. You don't have to, if the scene calls for you to be, let's say, drinking shots, you don't have to mime the shot. There's nothing in the scene that calls for that action. Let's say he's smoking in the scene. You don't have to mime smoking. That doesn't really make sense. I don't really think you need props in an audition. If a well-known actor is eating a granola bar in a scene, that's on them. But generally, we don't dig props.
This is from Joni. Where are you?
Johnny, I have one of those names you can't pronounce them.
Hi, Joni. And how do you say your last name?
Shady.
Okay. My agent doesn't want to submit me on no-name co-star roles because she feels I'll be seen only as a co-star. She wants me to be considered for guest star roles. I don't agree. At what point, how many co-star roles should an actor try to find or to go for guest star roles?
There's no formula for this, so there's not that you do 5 co-star roles and then you suddenly jump to a guest star. It has nothing. There's no formula. So the first part of your question is your agent won't submit you for
Yeah,
what?
I mean, why would she not want me to work? I guess that's the question. Why would she not want me to work in those roles? She thinks that casting directors will just only see me in those roles.
Well, she probably wants you to jump to the next level of guest stars, but you need to work, and work begets work. So it's a sit-down conversation. I mean, I think her intentions are right, but if you're not getting those guest stars, then and you're losing out on working, I don't know if that works for you. But it's maybe a discussion on that you need to have with her about what your goals are, what your timeline is, and what you want to do. Remember, you guys work together. It's a partnership.
Has an agent ever convinced you to give somebody a second shot who you
Yes.
maybe had dismissed?
That's what I've been doing this for a long time, and I have relationships with many agents and managers, and it's the ones that I trust, that we have a relationship that can get my ear to give someone a second chance. And when you say second chance, are you meaning like they've blown it before? It usually comes with, let's say they've blown it, and there's a period of time that has passed, and then they may have done some really good work, and they show me, look at them in this, or I've seen something, and I think, wow, this person has come around again, and of course, give people another chance. But it's usually due to those agents and managers that I trust.
Are there creative ways that some of them can go about getting tape other than network? Will a student film sometimes produce some good tape, or are those other sources? Or there's also services that create tapes for people. What do you think of those things?
I'm not a big fan of those services that create a scene for you, because one of the things I like to see in your demo reel is that you've been hired, and that you're not just creating something. But if you don't have anything, maybe better than nothing. But don't try to pass it off as this is a real scene that has been produced by a TV show.
We're going to just take a few final questions because we're coming to the end of this. They wrote me how much time we have left. Thank you. Okay, this is from J. Lyle.
Yeah.
Where are you? Okay. And that is, how much power does casting have? Say they love you, but you keep auditioning, but you're not booking. Casting said in the room, I love you, you're perfect. I can't quite make up the rest
Okay,
of
I think I know your question. Is the casting says they really like you and they keep bringing you back, but they never hire you?
Yeah, it's confusing because it's like, is it
He's not a student
like,
here.
is it the client that's saying no? Because casting will say like, have these dates available, like, there's no reason why they won't hire you, and then crickets.
Okay, this is a really good question. Here's what you need to concentrate on, is that the casting office really likes you and keeps bringing you back. That means a lot. That means they trust you and they want to hire you, and it just has not connected yet. So don't look to blame someone, that is it the client or like, it doesn't matter. They want to find you a role, they will find you a role. You keep coming in, you knock it out of the park, that's your job. Keep being consistent and really good, and sooner or later it will sync up and you'll get that job. The good news is you keep coming in, they keep bringing you in. That's great. So don't even think about, why aren't I getting this? They say they love me and I didn't get it. Well, so what? Move on to the next one. It's you didn't fit into the world they had already established, or you look too much like the writer's ex-husband, or these things are out of your control. So concentrate on the things that are in your control.
This is from Facebook, from Jessica. You mentioned being off book. I've heard it's best to be off book, but still hold the sides in my hand. Would you agree?
I have found, because I've now been teaching and traveling to different countries, and I have found that it's actually different in all different countries. In Australia, hi Marilyn, you would never come in with your sides in your hand. They don't do that. In Hollywood, New York, the United States, it's totally fine to have your sides in your hand as a reference. Turn the pages as you go along, so you can dip down if you have to, if you get a little bit lost. By the time you're coming in for, let's say, your final callback, you're not holding on to your sides any longer. But in the beginning, that's fine to do, as long as you're not reading it off, as long as you don't have the habit of then, since it's in your hand, of reading it off the page. But here, it seems to be fine. But I've noticed that it is different. Like I taught in Buenos Aires, and they would never hold their sides.
We're wrapping. Are there any thoughts or stories that you want to share that we
Oh, I have a
haven't?
question for you guys, because I have a column on Backstage Magazine, and I've been writing for 6 or 7 years now. And I have to write a story this weekend, and sometimes my brain is just, I don't know what to write. So do you guys have any topics that you would like to see me write this weekend? Help me out?
I do.
Yeah.
With the, as far as Twitter and the social media, are casting directors looking to see how many followers you have before they hire you? Because
I covered this already, but
Oh,
that's
okay.
a good. The projects that I cast so far, we're not looking to see how many followers you have, but there are many projects that do. I haven't worked on those, but I already wrote about this. But thank you. Yeah.
I've heard several younger folks say that they've missed their window and they're never going to be an actor because they've missed their window. And I think it's really important that young people know that acting is like for life.
I just wrote an article on
Never
this
mind.
about women our age that are now getting the most amazing roles that they wouldn't have been able to do in their 20s or 30s, because they are now of a certain age and they have this life, what Frances McDormand is doing right now. The roles that they're playing now are juicier and better, and they couldn't have played them in their 30s. But yeah, it goes on forever, and now finally they're writing for women
We use
our age.
seasoned, mature. Those are our
Yeah,
words
there's
around
some
here.
really great roles. Anything else that I haven't written about? But you know that?
Elizabeth
Yeah.
Barnes?
I wonder sometimes what people should take if they insist on going to college and, taking classes like this. What other classes would you think would be best?
Psychology.
Okay.
I took psychology, a lot of psychology in college, and it turned out to be one of the best things for, I didn't know it then, for what I do now. You see the connection?
Sure.
Yeah. And business classes. David, and business classes.
Marcie, I would love to read, if I was just moving into town, what entitles good training. Because there are a lot of schools that they're portraying themselves like as if the next step. But it's really confusing because there are a lot of people teaching acting, teaching stuff here, and I would love to see if you read something.
I wrote a 3-part article about this, about abusive acting classes. I think I interviewed you, actually.
And I am not abusive.
You scared me. You scared me. I think so. Look it up. But there, you did. There are acting classes that are kind of like cults, and they're abusive, and you're not learning anything, and you're paying for the privilege for someone to be name dropping and really abusing you and not protecting you. And I think your teacher has to push you to make you grow, but certainly not in an abusive way. But there's some horror stories that I found out about when I did this article. Horror stories. So I think you have to use word of mouth, ask your friends, and audit these classes.
I already go to a nice school.
Really?
He was not a planned question.
Not at all.
And he used the L word.
Yeah.
I have a couple thoughts. Your feelings, or if you may have already written something about meditation or gratitude lists or journaling. I know that for myself, 2 years ago, a friend said, "Do you meditate?" And I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, do you journal?" "Nah." And so she gifted me with Oprah and Deepak's 21 Day.
Oh, that's
and
so
I've
nice.
listened to that every day for the past 850 days. And on a personal level, I started journaling as well, along with a gratitude list. So I find myself waking up in a positive state
That's
rather
so
than
great.
the negative of, I don't have any auditions today, other people are booking and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, what am I doing wrong? So maybe something along those lines of
Wrote it?
starting.
See, I've been writing for years.
Yeah.
I also wrote about volunteering and how that's a huge part of getting out of your self and giving to others and being of service, and that will help you immensely. Did you have do you have an idea? Yeah.
I'd love to read an article about Untamed Heart and how that was the first movie you produced, right?
Yeah, co-produced. Yeah.
I'd love to read an article about that because I know
Interesting.
when a casting director.
Will anyone else care? I don't know.
Well, a casting director who just cast me on a movie became a producer because he was so in love with the project. And
well, many times the casting director takes the credit for a producer, but they're not actually producing it. All the movies that I've produced, co-produced, I've actually done that. I've been on location for months, actually did the job. It's not just many times they'll give the casting director that title in lieu of paying them.
That's what makes it interesting.
I
You've done 4.
Yeah, so I've actually done it. Okay, that's I've not written about that. Yes.
I'm not sure if you've done this prior. My name is Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, so one of the things in my second phase of my business plan, if you will, is to join organizations with like-minded people, whether they be industry or veterans that are connected in the entertainment industry. Do you find that helpful? And what types of organizations would you recommend?
Yes, I talk about this in my class that, your classes, your training, it gets expensive, but you can, for free, put together what I would call a power group of like-minded people, meet once a week, do your own thing, read a play, create a project. I think it's a matter of handpicking and finding those people, not necessarily joining an organization, although you can do that. But you can make your own group and potluck it, and people come over and you decide that you want to shoot a short and find the most talented people. And you can do that through your networking, through class, through all of the other people that you meet in your business. I think it's important to keep a list of all the people that you meet. one thing I urge you to do if you're not doing this already is to keep a journal. It could be an Excel spreadsheet, it could be however you organize your life, of all the auditions that you go on, all the meetings that you have, and list what the project is, all the people that were involved, all the people that were in the room, what you wore, what the choices you made, what the direction they gave you, because when you start getting busy and get lots of callbacks, and you have to come back for this project, you're not going to remember what you did, and so you'll have all those notes. And then also this will serve as this this database for you. Let's say you worked on a project and you really liked the costume designer, and so you'll have that person as part of your database so that you can call on that person if and when you decide to make your own project. But in terms of organizations, it really depends on what your interests are. And it's pretty easy to Google and find out what those are. Yes?
Just in terms of your column, as my voice went up.
Yes?
Excuse me. Something that seems to be missing from the world in general right now is love. It's very abstract, but on the other hand, connecting with people, I believe, has to do with how we make our choices as actors. So maybe that's something you would want to just think about, or how.
Can you be more specific? I like your idea.
Okay. Someone once defined love for me. She said, the way to experience love is to volunteer someplace 3 hours a week, just once a day, but it cannot be related to your work. Mm-hmm. So you can't think, oh, I'm going to go volunteer to theater. No, doesn't count. Right. You would need to go to a doggy rescue place, mm-hmm. or a horse rescue place, pick something like that, or work on a farm, or pick the weeds in their garden or something. But 3 hours a week where you're giving of yourself, expecting nothing in return, much less related to our work.
Yeah, I wrote the volunteering article, but back to the love.
Yeah, it's
I like where you're going. I need more
I'm
specifics.
having a hard time because it just splurted.
I like it.
Having had some surgery recently and learning how to walk from scratch, and then lying in this bed at this rehab place going, who am I and where am I going and what is life and what is love and what is, and it's certainly not sex and it's not this and it's not that, and parents are dead, this and that, but on the other hand, you're meeting new wonderful people. So exploring openness, avenues, meeting new people, it's okay. You don't have to be lifelong committed people, but love happens in little bitty ways and things they do for you. Mm-hmm. When you don't know where you want getting coffee in the morning and you make friends with this nurse's aide who makes up this nifty little tray, and you're sitting in this room with people who are mending and having coffee and having like an Oscar party.
Well, that's lovely.
Something like that.
Interesting.
Finding
Very good.
love
Thank you.
in little places.
I like that.
Well, to piggyback off of that, I don't know if this is the same, but I would love to hear, because you have access to a really wide audience. It would be cool to read an article about how we as actors tend to compare ourselves to each other. Now such and such person got cast in such and such thing. It makes you feel bad, rather than when you get to that room, because you talked about earlier the waiting room and how it's pins and needles. I can remember one morning when I went to an audition and I was in the waiting room and I looked around and I paid attention to every single person that was across from me, and I thought, I'm in LA, I'm here at a job, and I'm auditioning, and so is this person, and so is this person, and so is this person. Mm-hmm. And it just made me feel so good inside to know that I was wanting to accomplish my goals and my dreams, and so was that person, and they were right there with me. And it wasn't.
I love that. And you can, like you said, piggyback off of that and send all of them love.
Yeah, and I would love for you to write about we're not
that we're all in this
enemies.
together. We're all in this together.
We need to build each other up, and when someone gets a role, be super happy for them and not jealous.
That's excellent.
I love that.
In fact, if any of you have, we're going to wrap, but if you have ideas, send it to Ian at info@howardfine.com, and then we'll forward them to Marcie.
I like marrying these
Those two are very good.
Yes.
And any final thoughts?
I love being here. Howard's an old friend, and I love talking to you. You're so intuitive with actors, and I think you give so much of yourself, and I really, really appreciate that. And I love that you've organized this, and love,
Yeah.
love.
Because you are here,
Love
we
is
gave you a couple bottles of water.
Love is love.
But you're here on your time to share your heart with all of us.
I really enjoyed
And you
doing
really
this.
have.
Why don't you announce this?
Yes, well,
I'd rather have you announce this.
I am announcing this. Okay. For years, Marcie has taught an audition boot camp, and I am delighted to bring it here to the studio. So we will be hosting the audition boot camp. We have the details. It's 2 days. This won't be the only time we ever do it, but it starts July 21st and 22nd. I will be in Australia, and you will have nothing to do, and you will want desperately to be in the class. So it's 2 days, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and we have flyers for it. It is limited to professional actors only. You have to already be in the game in order to take the course, because it's meant to bump up the quality of what you are already competing for. So on that note, what a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you all so much.